What exactly is a plus bike? What are the advantages and disadvantages, and who should ride one? Those are the questions that I'll tackle in this video. A plus bike refers to a mountain bike that has tires that are approximately 3 inches wide. Some are a little bit more and some are a little bit less. For example, this bike has a 2.8 on the back and a 3.0 on the front. A standard mountain bike tire is between a 1.9 and a 2.4. Recently, 2.6 tires have come on the scene, and I'll talk about those at the end of this video. Now, a plus bike is not to be confused with a fat bike. A fat bike is a mountain bike that has tires approximately 4 inches wide. Those were originally designed to be ridden in the snow, but you're starting to see them used for trail applications as well. Most plus bikes today come on wheels that are 27.5, and that refers to the approximate diameter of the wheel. There are some 29er plus bikes out there. Those are a little bit more rare, and even some 26-inch diameter wheels that are plus size tires, and those are actually even more rare than the 29ers. Now I want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of plus size tires. And I'll start with the disadvantages because I think those are outweighed by the advantages, and I want to get those out of the way first. First of all, the weight of the tire and the rim. Rotational weight is important in terms of how a bike rides and how it feels in terms of being heavy or light. So plus size tires are obviously going to be heavier than a regular size tire, and rotational weight is important because the further you go out from the hub, the more significant rotational weight will be. So the tire has more rubber, so it's heavier, and the rim has to be wider, and that's going to make the rim heavier. So you do have more rotational weight, and that comes into effect when you're climbing and when you're accelerating the bike. So either getting up a steep climb or just starting from a dead stop or trying to get the bike going on a sprint. So you're going to feel a little bit more drag in those scenarios because of the additional weight. Now I do want to mention that even though the rims and tires are heavier, once you get out on the trail on a plus bike, it's not as noticeable as you might think. The bikes still ride pretty well, and again, unless you're comparing a super light cross-country wheel set and tire, you're not going to notice a huge difference, but it is there. The other disadvantages is the fact that the sidewalls of the tires are going to be a little bit weaker. Because companies make the tires to be as light as they can, typically a plus size tire is going to have a weaker sidewall, so it's more prone to rocks hitting the sidewall and making some tears in it. Also, because the tread pattern is wider, you're going to have more rolling resistance, and that comes into play especially if you're riding on the road. So if you're going to a trailhead and riding on the road, the bike is going to be slower. You do have a little bit more rolling resistance on the trail, but like the weight, it's not quite as noticeable as you might think. Another disadvantage that I haven't found to be too much of a factor, but I have heard people talk about it, and that is the fact that the tires, because they are larger, can be a little bit more bouncy and deflect off items. So if you're cornering and you hit something in the corner, like a root or a rock, the tire may deflect a little bit, and it may cause it to squirm around a little bit more. Now I think that disadvantage is going to be more prominent on a fat bike, but it is there a little bit on a plus bike, but the flip side of that is you're going to have a more compliant ride with that bigger tire. And finally, plus size tires are not great in really muddy conditions, so soupy, sloppy mud. You need a tire to kind of dig down into the mud and get some traction, and the plus tires can kind of float on top a little bit, and so you're not going to have great traction in soupy mud. Now as we get into the advantages, I'm going to talk about traction, and that's about the only scenario when you're not going to have good traction. Everywhere else I think you're going to have really good traction on the plus size tire. For the advantages of plus size tires, there are really two main advantages, and that is increased traction and increased comfort. Plus size tires have a larger contact patch, so there's more rubber on the ground, and that is going to give you significantly more traction in looser terrain. So if you're churning up climbs that have loose gravel or rocks, then you are going to have a lot more traction on those types of climbs. Also, for descending, you're going to have more traction and that especially comes into play when you're braking. So when it's time to apply the brakes, you have to have some rubber on the ground to have that coefficient of friction to slow you down, and it's a lot easier to slow down on a plus size tire because the tires will not skid near as easily as a standard size tire. Also, cornering traction is going to be greatly enhanced by that larger contact patch of a plus size tire. So you can really lay into a corner harder on a plus bike than you can on a standard size tire. And if you live in an area where you don't have big climbs and descents, I think the cornering traction is going to be the biggest advantage you're going to find with riding a plus size bike. The other big advantage of plus size tires is a more comfortable, compliant ride. With plus size tires, you can generally run around 15 psi. That allows the tire to conform more over roots and rocks and divots in the trail, and is going to just give you a more comfortable ride. And what I found is plus size tires make the biggest difference on a hardtail. They also make a big difference on full suspension because you have more traction, but as far as comfort, it really increases the comfort of a hardtail mountain bike. Now, I do want to note that even though they give a more compliant ride, I don't feel like a plus size tire takes the place of suspension. So you still want to run at least a suspension fork. Now let's talk about who would benefit from a plus size mountain bike. First of all, I think those people who live and ride in terrain that's loose, so maybe out in Arizona with loose kind of rocks and things like that, and you just are tired of slipping out your rear tire when you're trying to climb, I think you're going to really benefit from a plus size mountain bike. Also, if you want a mountain bike that's just more steady, if you're tired of slipping out on corners and you want to reduce your chance of crashing, again, especially when cornering and sliding out, I think you're really going to benefit from a plus size tire. If you're a new rider, I think that you're going to really benefit from having that bike that is just more stable. It's going to have better traction. Again, you're going to have less of a chance of crashing as a new rider on a plus size mountain bike. And the example that I can give is when I was about 12 years old, I learned how to surf in Hawaii. My father was on a business trip and we went out there and I took some surfing lessons. They didn't put me on a surfboard that was really skinny and narrow and turned quickly. It was a big, fat, wide longboard because it was really steady, and it really helped me to learn how to surf and increase my confidence. I kind of feel that's a good analogy for beginners in mountain biking because they can learn to ride a mountain bike that's still pretty grippy and comfortable, and again, not going to slide out. The nice thing about that is, as your skills progress, I think you can really get a lot out of plus size tires. So they're not only good for beginners. If you're a really aggressive rider, then you're going to have a lot of braking traction and cornering traction, so they'll really grow with your skills. Those that are looking for a new mountain bike, but you don't want to spend the money on a full suspension bike, you don't want the complexity of a full suspension bike, and so you're going to get a hardtail. Those people, I think, would really benefit from the plus size tire. Personally, I would not buy a hardtail again that could not fit plus size tires. Another group of people that I think would really benefit from plus size tires are enduro racers. So studies have shown that on some enduro courses, plus size tires, because of the additional grip and braking traction, are actually faster. Now, if you're an enduro racer, I think you need to test plus size tires to see if that's the case, depending on your riding style and the types of courses that you ride. Finally, if you've been mountain biking for a while and you just want something different, a plus size mountain bike would be a really good option. It is just a different feel, it's a different type of riding, and it, again, may kind of break up the routine of riding standard tires. Just a few other comments I want to make as I wrap up this video. First of all, plus size tires are not designed for riding in snow. They would be better than a standard size mountain bike tire, but if you're looking for a bike to ride in snow, then you want to go with a fat bike, which again has 4-inch size tires. Also, if you're looking for a plus size mountain bike, I would recommend finding one that can also run 29er tires. So a lot of plus size bikes coming out today can also fit standard 29er tires, and that's going to make for a bike that's very versatile, especially if you're getting a hardtail and you think you may want to get into some racing, but you also want a bike that's pretty capable for general trail riding. then you want to look for that type of versatility when buying a mountain bike. And the last thing that I want to mention is 2.6 size tires, which fit actually between a standard size mountain bike tire and a plus tire. And those, I think, are a really good option. They you don't have the disadvantages of weaker sidewalls that you have with a plus size tire, and they're not quite as heavy as a plus size tire, but they have more grip than a standard mountain bike tire. And so I think a 2.6 size tire is a really good option if you want to blend the advantages of both the standard mountain bike tire and a plus size mountain bike. And the nice thing about 2.6 size tires is the fact that generally you could put a 2.6 on a trail bike that would normally run 2.4. A lot of times you're going to find enough clearance to run a 2.6. And you could also put a 2.6 on a plus size mountain bike rim. It is going to spread the tire out a little bit, but it would still work. So that's going to wrap up this video of explaining what a plus size mountain bike is and hopefully help you decide if it's right for you. Thanks for watching.